We're We are also excited to be gifting some great swag to today's attendee. We are giving free 6-month LinkedIn Premium subscriptions, and we will share more details on how to claim your swag at the end of today's events. All right, is everybody all set? Y'all ready to get that chat on fire? You ready to hear some great conversation? I'm going to hand it off to my teammate, Gina Roode, to kick off today's event. To you, Gina.
Thanks, Camille. From Suavemente to what you were talking about, traveling, incredible energy as we start today. I'm really excited to be here with the members of Latinas in Tech community and learn more about you. A little bit more about myself. My name is Gina Roode. I've been with LinkedIn for a little under 10 years this December, and I am something not in my LinkedIn profile. I guess, yeah, you would say I'm a little bit of a Latina LinkedIn OG, you could say. But after 10 years, I've learned a lot. Something not on my LinkedIn profile, though, is I am of Salvadorian and Spanish descent, came to the United States as a child, immigrated to the Midwest, then went to the Bay a few years ago. So I've been living the life here in the Bay, also with LinkedIn. So I am part of the data engineering team here at LinkedIn, started as a chief of staff, and now I'm moving more into a technical and product role, supporting our data leads. But I am so incredibly excited to introduce everybody to Mar Carpanelli. She has been with LinkedIn for a little bit, but I'm excited to start this journey with her. Welcome, Mar. If you could introduce yourself and give us a little bit about you and what's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Gina, Camille, Juanita, and the entire organizing team. Hi, everyone. It's a great honor to be part of this panel. And I hope I remember all your questions, Gina. So my name is Mar or Mar. I'm actually okay with both Spanish and English pronunciations, and my pronouns are she, her. And I am staff data scientist here at LinkedIn, and I'm also a council member for DataWit. I always tell everyone that I dream at my work, I work at my dream job. I dream at my work job, the same things, right? And so today actually marks my 3-year and 11-month anniversary, and I work in the academic graph research and insights team, which is basically a team that builds end-to-end data projects for different partners. And something that is not on my LinkedIn profile is that right before the pandemic, I hiked to the top of Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in continental US. And my dream is to one day hike the Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in all of the Americas. And it's actually in Argentina, where I'm from.
Oh, that's incredible. I have not been able to hike as much as you have, but I wish you all the best in your hiking journey. So
thank you.
Yeah, Mara, let's get started. As you know, at LinkedIn, we celebrate the notion of unconventional career path. Not all career paths are strictly linear. Do you feel that in your own career, has it been more linear, unconventional, or a mix of both?
So I really cannot tell you how many times I wished I had a perfect linear path. I'm not sure that really exists though. And my path is definitely non-linear, but I would say that looking back at all my experiences and how I got here, it does make sense in the big picture. So I study economics because I always wanted to have a job where I could help people. And I started my career at the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Argentina, working in things that are completely different from what I do today, which are public debt and infrastructure financing. And it was an incredible experience because I got to represent Argentina in the G20 and work on really hard problems that I believed really mattered to make the country better at a very young age. But something that I realized later on was that at the time, for me, government seemed like the only place where I could do this. And it was just because I didn't know anyone else or I didn't know about any other option. And this definitely changed when I got a scholarship to come to the US for grad school. And suddenly an entire universe of possibilities opened up. I met people who shared my passions, but also got jobs in international organizations or finance or tech or really anywhere. And after a few years at a development bank, I one day read about how LinkedIn was using big data to help people and governments around the world. And long story short, I ended up deciding to quit my job, comfortable job, and job that I loved in Washington, D.C., moved to San Francisco and develop more my data science skills, meet other people in tech, and try to make that leap to join LinkedIn. And, saving us the details, here I am today. So I guess kind of like the moral of the story is that I always knew where my heart was, but I really never truly knew all the possibilities on how I could get there or all the career paths that I could explore with my passions and the skills that I had. And something that really shaped that path was connecting with the right people and being able to dream bigger and dream differently from before.
I absolutely love hearing how the passion for not just economics, but the love of the work that you were doing how it's gone on through your career journey. And I know we could do an entire section on the network, the power of a social network. But pivoting a little bit more, going deeper into the work that you're doing right now at LinkedIn. So you made the move from DC and now you're in San Francisco. You went to the Bay, and you are now part of the Economic Graph Group. Can you go a little bit more into what your day-to-day looks like, projects or the work that you're doing with the group?
Of course. So we are a global team of over 25 data scientists spread across the US, Europe, and Asia. And we work with mainly 4 types of partners: policy, editorial, communications, which are like basically working with top news outlets. And the 4th one is executives at LinkedIn. And in our day-to-day, we work end-to-end with these partners on understanding, developing, and really implementing a lot of projects using LinkedIn data. So just to give you an example, I recently worked with editorial on a special report on career pathways for professional athletes. So basically what professional athletes do after being athletes. So I met with the editors, I scoped their questions with them, and then I basically turned around and started looking at the data, building statistical models, methodologies, pipelines, and a lot of documentation to try to answer these questions. And at the end, I collaborated closely with them to basically materialize all of this data into writing and key messages that will be useful for our members. And something that I find really exciting about our team, the Economic Graph team right now, is that we are doing more and more proactive work. So just to give you another example, during the pandemic, a colleague of mine and I started a passion project on sustainability and the green economy, and basically how the workforce is transitioning into a greener economy. So we realized there was a story there, and we did 2 things. The first one is we allied with other interested parties across the company, and a great ally ended up being the head of sustainability, who actually ended up funding our investment in developing a taxonomy, a skills taxonomy for identifying green skills. And the second thing is that once we had a story and like we had these investments, we went to our econ and policy VPs and we pitched this work to them, and it ended up leading to like a massive work stream. We wrote a paper, we attended conferences with like the United Nations to help LinkedIn have a voice in this space, and also help, doing things like inform members and governments on how they could develop greener skills or get greener jobs. So really, it can be anything, my day-to-day, but something that I did learn along the way about being a data scientist is that it is important to have time to think and to create and to innovate. And oftentimes investing in the right data foundations is what gives you the extra space to do that. So it's something that I try to keep in mind every day in my work.
That's absolutely incredible. I know just even on my own LinkedIn feed, how much the sports industry has increased on the feed itself. So seeing that the work that you're doing, the research and such, and then also with the green projects as well. It's incredible to see the cross function of the data science space. I'm curious though, in regards to culture, in the role that it fits within your career. Can you go into how that's culture plays a function within your role in leadership?
So I think like probably a very big part of my culture is shaped by being from Argentina. So Argentina is definitely a wonderful and beautiful country that I love with all my heart, but it also comes with some challenges in a way that really shape anyone who grows up there. So I'm talking about, like economic crisis and insecurity and just big uncertainty on everyday little things like the price of milk, but also like job stability and things like that. So growing up there made me experience and honestly like suffer under my own skin a lot of these challenges. And because, for example, like I could see that my parents always worked very hard. They would leave at 7 in the morning, come back at 9 p.m. for dinner, or even later. And I still saw that hard work was not always enough to keep a job or to be able to plan like for next month. So I think that really taught me that change is constant, and that sometimes like a really good coping mechanism has to do with looking at the glass half full and taking things with humor and really learning to adapt. And there are many places where things change fast, but I think tech is definitely one of them in many ways. Priorities change, there are reorgs, there are all kinds of things that change in this space. And we're always trying to push the frontier of knowledge and innovate. So of course we have to embrace change. But I think keeping that growth mindset has always helped me to grow. And that's something that is really, like part of who I am. It's really part of like my culture. Something else that really shaped me from my culture is kind of like being a people person. So, I can be an introvert, but I believe in being warm and being kind and in building meaningful connections with others, especially if I'm seeing them every day and they are a big part of my life. So I think that definitely pays off in the workplace.
I absolutely love hearing that, how your let's say cultura, your culture is part of your every day-to-day, from the ability to pivot, agility, as you've mentioned in your previous career, how you were able to see the opportunity within the work and economics, but also the energy that just your culture brings, the being sociable and kind. So I really love hearing that. I know you mentioned earlier that you were part of the data women in tech leadership group. Can you talk a little bit more about how these communities like DataWit or Hola, Hispanics of LinkedIn Alliance, shape your professional work here at LinkedIn?
Yeah, sure. So you're totally right. Communities are so important for growth because they help you imagine options that would have never crossed your mind. And connecting to the culture question, another big part of my culture and like my identity in general comes from being a woman. And this year I joined DataWit, and there I volunteer some of my time to work on challenges facing all women, especially in the data engineering org, with you, Gina, by the way. And it is a very valuable community for me for many reasons. And at the core of it is its mission to end gender gaps in data engineering. But personally, I feel that it has been incredible for two reasons in particular. So the first one is because I am actually meeting and getting to know people who are becoming my role models. So these are other women like me who are immigrants, or sometimes feel like they are outsiders, or they also feel this tension between investing and growing more at work and being present and having an active role as moms or with their families, while also being ambitious and still wanting to grow, right? And these women are leaders that I admire, and they're, like they're there for me in many ways. And just working with them is very different from meeting them in a conference or seeing them every now and then in a hallway. And because I get to learn firsthand from them in how they think and how they tackle problems and situations, I think this group is very special. That said, I think we definitely need more Latinas there. But it's still like a very important community for me. The second reason is that it helps me work on my sense of belonging. I share many common challenges, experiences, and interests with a lot of women here. And I know that when I reach out to them, they will be there for me, and I want to be there for them as well. So just to give you an example, as a matter of fact, I ended up joining DataWit because one of their members actually volunteered some of her time to help me write a better and successful promo packet. And that's how I was like, oh, actually, I think, this matters, and I want to do this for other people too. So, when one doesn't know better, I think it's easy to underestimate the power of communities. But I think it's one of those things that once you see it, you cannot unsee it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I +1 on the community of data women in tech, DataWid at LinkedIn. I remember joining a couple of years ago because the senior director, we didn't have a lot of commonalities, I thought. And over the years, I have been able to grow so closely with a lot of the women here at LinkedIn through DataWid. And it's funny how, some of the things that I've learned is, for example, Diwali. And then I've taught about Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's just, and there's so much relatability between the two. So I love the idea of DataWit. One of the things, though, that I want to talk about is the idea of resilience, and how you mentioned that adaptability previously, but also part of being a great leader within engineering is the ability to be resilient and confident. Can you talk a little bit more about that in the course of your career?
This is actually a tough question. I agree that confidence and resilience are really great tools for sure. So how I build them, I think I build them every day. So confidence was particularly slow for me to build over time because it's really easy to feel imposter syndrome tech. And another issue for many of us, I would say very common issue for Latinas, is that most of us have been raised as people pleasers. And that means it's really hard to say no sometimes. Even when we know we have to say no, we still want to say yes. And so we have this internal constant fight to decide what to do, because we also want to really hard belong in the room where we are. So I think a lot of my confidence actually comes from focus. I spend a lot of time trying to understand what we're doing and planning roadmaps and helping us get there in a systematic way. And it also comes, at least for me, with being as technical as I can be. So for the kind of work that I do, it really matters to understand the big picture, but also some technical aspects of the problem. But that also has a limit, right? So for me, confidence also means humility, and the humility to, tell others when you don't understand, when you have limitations, and, just being humble and ask for help. But it's something that I have to build every day. As for resilience, I think that's more embedded in my Latina DNA. As Latinas, we've been practicing this in all aspects of our lives, I believe. And to me, it's about definitely being flexible and adapting to new situations, but also about helping others adapt. So sometimes it means just like, facing a problem that I have no idea how I'm gonna solve, in a way that is very clear that even if I don't know how to, I know I will solve it. And sometimes just like sharing that spirit with my colleagues has proved to be very helpful and has helped also others believe in themselves. But to be honest, I think, I came a long way in these two, but I still have to do a lot every day. I think I have to be very active about growing these skills.
Mara, I want to take a pause here and really think, talk about that. I think that exactly what you're saying, the feeling guilty for putting ourselves, and I think especially as Latinas, we tend to do that, oh, there's other priorities ahead of myself. And I love what you said, that, it's okay to say no. It's okay to really look at your own goals, being more technical, and the confidence that you've built over your career. Part of acknowledging and overcoming the common challenges is grappling with the cultural expectations of being with the workplace biases, being a Latina in tech. As you look back in your career over the years, is there one challenge that it stands out for you? And can you go a little bit deeper into how you went through that, or how you worked through that?
There are too many challenges. I think there are really a lot of challenges, but so reflecting on this, I think there's kind of like two big types of challenges that really shaped my career. The first one is more emotional. So people sometimes really look at me like I'm in the wrong place, or sometimes I have the impression that they're making assumptions about me. And I do have, unfortunately, a few sad examples that I'm not going to be sharing because it's not even worth thinking about it. But this first type of challenges is emotional, in the sense that a lot has to do with how I feel, and also with the biases and expectations that I think people have of me. So it is really important, and it's hard, but I have a big role to play there. And I've decided that it's not going to be something that's going to stop me from growing and learning. And of course, some days it's easier than others, but it's definitely, like a decision that I made, that I'm not going to care about how people look at me when I enter a room. The second type of challenges, I think, and this was very important, it was less emotional and more quantifiable. So when I started my career in tech, it kind of like, first of all, actually, when I started my career, it kind of did not even occur to me to go into tech, because I didn't know any other women who were in tech, or much less Latinas who were in tech at that point. And then when I came into tech, I didn't find any other women who were like me, in the sense that they could have, being role models for me, or could have helped me, visualize myself in this space. So that also meant I was really very poorly equipped to understand an interview process, or to advocate for myself, or to negotiate a position or negotiate a salary. And that's, really a big problem, but that's, a more measurable problem than one that has to do with like how I think people perceive me, because, that I can deal with. But these other things, I think, are more systematic, and they do need a bigger solution. So I'm absolutely convinced that creating these communities is one of the best ways for people who are like me, or who are like just absolutely disconnected from this world, to even start dreaming about being part of it. So that's why I really love LinkedIn as a network, and as a place where one can break those barriers. And I love everything that we do here, because I can help strangers who reach out to me, or I can help connect people. And that, I think, and data shows that is really powerful.
I absolutely love that. You are speaking my words in the systematic, and then what the identity that you create to belong until you find the community that builds that around you. It's incredible seeing that within even your journey and mine. At the most basic example, I go by Gina, but in Spanish, mi nombre es Virginia, and I've always loved my name in Spanish, but in English, I didn't like it. It's Virginia, I don't know, it has a weird name sound to me, so I go by Gina. And being able to embrace your own cultural identity within the community that you build. I know that at LinkedIn, I can say I'm Virginia, and everyone's like, I love your name, and I think that's the power for me of what LinkedIn has been able to build for me. So I think you kind of touched on my next question was, what do you love most about being at LinkedIn? If you have anything additional to add on that.
Yeah, there's so many things I love about LinkedIn. One of them, probably the biggest one, is the culture. But if I had to pick something that really makes me want to wake up every morning and come to work, it has to do with the passion that everyone shares here for what we do. So really everyone I know and everyone in my team and around me and everyone I end up working with in any other team or my partners and, everyone literally truly believes in creating economic opportunity for every member of the workforce, which is kind of like a cliche, but it's real. And it's not something we say, it's something we do. And I think this passion keeps me here. And I've seen, I worked at the Inter-American Development Bank before, which has such a strong mission. It's like the World Bank, but for Latin America. And it has such a strong mission to help Latin American countries develop. And they have, different areas of development, and all the projects are, incredible on paper. But one of the challenges I was facing there was that at some point after a few years, it's easy for people to disconnect from the mission of the bank. And I think that makes it hard to go to work every day. And it's something incredible at LinkedIn that people are really connected and close, and they live the mission every day.
Yes, absolutely. The passion you talk about that. I've been at LinkedIn now for 10 years, and I talk to old timers like myself a lot. I'm like, why have you stayed so long? And I know it sounds really generic. It's the LinkedIn values and the culture, but there are days where I still am beside myself thinking, I work for LinkedIn in California when I came here many years ago. It amazes me, the work that we do, the power that we're doing globally. So Mara, I just want to thank you. I know we're at time here with the questions. I really appreciate your candor and your vulnerability that you shared today. I think that you sharing your experiences really resonates with me as well. The last question I have for you is, can you give me a memorable piece of advice that you've been given in your career?
Of course. So first of all, thank you, Gina. And I think we all should be hearing from you and your incredible story. But a piece of advice that really stuck with me is actually something I heard in a WIT event at Stripe many years ago, like way before the pandemic happened. And it had to do with managing imposter syndrome. So as women, we often find ourselves being one of few in the room. And as Latinas, we often find ourselves being the only ones in the room. And as it happens, surely it happened to many of you, but sometimes we are thinking something that is completely different from what everyone else is saying. And it can be very hard to speak up. So this lady at the event basically was talking about this, and she said that when that happens, we should be forcing ourselves to say at least one thing, because that one thing can be, just reshifting the entire conversation, and also making us realize that we do belong in the room and there's a reason why we're there. So, I think that's really something that stuck with me over time and that I repeat to other women. But I think career advice in general is always welcome. So I want to flip it back to you, Gina, and ask you, what's your piece of advice that you got that you thought was the most useful throughout your career?
Thank you. I love your advice. I'm not gonna go deep on this one, only for the fact that with this event, I have so much like Latino energy right now, and I'm gonna get a piece of advice from one of my favorite movies. There's a phrase in a movie, I'm not gonna share which one, and let's see if anyone in the chat can share it, but it's she says, solamente una lágrima. And she is referring to, we're only going to cry once about this and then we're going to move on. And I think in our career, especially as Latinas, we've had the experience of feeling so much, time and time again, but you cry once and you move on. And I think that has been able to, and for English, it's just one tear. But yeah, I think that's the thing, that you have to have the resilience, going back to the resilience. So Mara, thank you. It has been an honor to chat with you. But Camille, I'm gonna hand it back to you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, ladies. That was a very powerful conversation. Thank you, Mara, for reminding me that I need to say no more. It's something that I very much struggle with as well. So thank you for, talking in this open space with us. And thanks just for empowering all of us here. We are excited, though, to open the floor for amazing guests in this virtual room. If you have a question, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to write it in the chat, come off mute, use the raise your hand feature, whatever you want. If you just want to be loud like me, go ahead, girl, get off, to come off mute and say it. But we want to use this space for our audience here to be able to ask any questions. I'm going to go ahead and start off by kicking it, because we did get a few questions beforehand as well, and just ask, what are some ways that LinkedIn advocates for women in tech? And before I give it over to Gina and Mar for any input, I'm gonna give you all some time to be able to breathe, catch your breath, get a drink of water. And I'm gonna share some ways that I've seen that LinkedIn has been able to open up this community for what. One of them is Women Connect. We actually do have an event tomorrow, and Women Connect is a platform for women in technology and allies to come together and connect with one another. It exchanges best practices and builds meaningful relationship. And it's really focused on community culture for women in tech initiatives. You guys had mentioned earlier about LinkedIn WIT and how Mars part of the data LinkedIn with community. They also work hand in hand. Employee resources groups are amazing here at LinkedIn. We are part of OLA, but also having a woman at LinkedIn, to be able to have somebody that is also a woman, that is Latina, to be able to have both of these employee resources groups really enable us to be able to speak. So those are some ways that I've seen here at LinkedIn where we're able to uplift these communities. Gina, Mar, is there anything you wanted to add to this question? Y'all can take a breather too and not answer this, so it's okay. No pressure.
Yeah, you've really covered so much of what I would have said as well, that and plus one on the Women Connect. I'm really excited for that event tomorrow. So yeah, you covered a lot of that.
Yeah, something that I can add has to do with, a lot of what we do is basically taking the bull by the horns. So we are increasingly talking about taboo topics that are really important for women in tech. So, some of them have to do with pay gaps or underrepresentation in patents. And I think just talking about those, measuring those, and trying to find solutions or to find paths for bridging these gaps is very unique to LinkedIn, at least, it's definitely not something that is broadly available everywhere, and that I think is very valuable that we have here.
And I do see somebody raising their hand. Laura, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
I would love to. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice to meet everyone. And I love this. I wanted to ask Mar particularly, you had mentioned about selecting role models within the industry. I wanted to hear a little more about that, like what your criteria is, how you've selected, say, mentors, role models over the years.
Well, that's really tough because, you know, sometimes role models are not easy to find. They're not broadly available. And sometimes we don't know they might be role models. And to be honest, like way beyond the industry, I started picking role models based more on their values and what I admired about them, more than like their technical knowledge or their beautiful climbing through the corporate ladder. And this cliche kind of, but my first role model was my mom because she was, you know, strong, unstoppable, ambitious, and of course an incredible mom, but you know, a woman that made me see what I could be, and she taught me that I could be anything I wanted. So you know, with that standard, I try to find role models in the industry. And again, there aren't so many, and it feels very lonely at times, but something that really helps our community, so data with also just looking at you know, attending these kind of events, looking at people's LinkedIn's, depending on one's field, it can have to do with, like, you know, starting researching about a topic and seeing that there's a woman that has done a lot of work there and reaching out to them in particular to build that connection. So I think one has to get creative at finding these role models. But it's really important to have them because, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's really hard to dream of what one wants to be when there's nothing there that shows us that that's a possibility.
That's
Really great question, Laura. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's super helpful. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's true, valid point. You have to be cautious, wise who you're selecting as a role model, and they can be hard to come by. So thank you.
Kind of going off of that questions, because role models, mentors, they're very important, being Latina, being a woman. Gina, I would love to hear from you as well, if you have any mentors or role models, and how you were able to learn from them.
Yeah, thank you for the question. One of the things I actually learned, I would say actually only about 5 years ago, I had this idea that to have a role model, it had to be one person, the person with the perfect career, the perfect, exactly what I wanted to be. And over the years, I've learned that's not correct, at least for my own career. Someone told me, and I'm going to butcher exactly how they said it, but think of role models and people and champions as someone that gets you to the room, then you have somebody else when you're in the room, and then you have someone to the next room. So every single person is going to have a different skill set that they're going to bring out in you. To get you to the room, they're building up your whether it's a technical skill. When you're in the room, they continue to expand your skills. How is it that you're presenting yourself? And then what's your next play after that? You're not thinking about just what you're going to do in a year, but what you're doing 5 years from now. So those are completely different. Yeah, exactly, in the chat, it's a team. And that way, it doesn't always feel like you're just bringing one person on the journey. You're bringing different aspects and points of view.
Love that, Gina. I'm just gonna have to plug in my mentor, because y'all, when I heard this question about mentors, I got so excited because I have a Latina mentor who just really paved the way for me. Gina Amar, I'm pretty sure you might be familiar with Lonnie Azaba. So if you don't know,
you were going to say Lonnie.
If you don't know Lonnie Azaba and you're on this call right now, please go look her at LinkedIn, find some event to hear her speak. Like, Lonnie Azaba is the director of Eng recruiting at Robinhood. And prior to that, she was this manager in Eng recruiting when I met her, and then later became a director of inclusion recruiting at LinkedIn. And when I came to LinkedIn, one of the reasons I joined LinkedIn was because of the community. People love to work here, as Mar said. And I quickly met Lonnie, a Latina in a leadership position at LinkedIn, and I was amazed. And my first week there, she came up, introduced me, and made me feel like I belong there. And she goes, we are going to do whatever it takes to get you converted, because I started as a contractor. And let me tell you, having a Latina mentor changed my life. It literally opened the door for me, where whenever I felt like I couldn't speak in a room, Lonnie's like, yes, you can. You're going to speak in a room right now. You don't feel comfortable? I'm opening this door for you. Here you go. Say what you have to say. And so she was just a great advocate for me. And like when I was trying to get converted, it was a hard conversation to start. And Lonnie went up to my manager and she goes, hey, if you don't convert Camille by Friday, I'm going to convert her to my team. 2 days later, I had an invite for a conversion interview. And so it was just great to be able to have a mentor that really helped me come out of my comfort zone and see my true colors. So thank you for asking that question about mentors. I do see we have another hand raised. Juan, do you want to come off mute and ask that question?
Yes, and first thing I want to say is thank you everyone for this great presentation and meeting everyone from LinkedIn. So also to think, so here's my question and sort of background. Thank you, LinkedIn, for allowing me to add dyslexic thinking as a skill, which is a skill I added. So my question is, how does LinkedIn advocate for an inclusive culture? What challenges have you faced with neurodiversity? And I'll give an example, me very personal. So I was once told by a manager, you don't know how to read. You can't read, so I can't assign you work. And this year, I wrote my first patent. So, and that's me like a personal example, but being Latino or Colombiano, Paisa, and dyslexic thinker, that's my superpower. So now to you.
I'm absolutely blown away by that. Congratulations. I know that in itself, it has been a journey for you. And I just incredibly commend you for the work that you've done. I can start on that one. So yeah, and here's the one thing that I've learned over the years at LinkedIn. Just like with a career, just like with everything else, LinkedIn evolves and we build and we learn from our own work and how to make things better. As Maud mentioned with the economic graph and how the data tells the story. You know, what is it that our members need? What is it that the economy is, how the economy is shifting? And I think, and I know that's a very general, broad response, but yeah, skills-based hiring is an example of that. But yeah, it is an evolution of how we build the product, how we listen to our members, and how our members trust us to understand what's going on in their own world to build better products for them, I would say.
I would also just add of how we include, that space for us internally as well is always being your authentic self. And I know being Latina and being a woman, like I don't see a lot of people that look like me on an every day-to-day basis. And sometimes I'm the only person in the room. And what I've really enjoyed being at LinkedIn is we are very big on allyship. How could we be better advocates for this community to make sure that people feel like they belong in this space? And so it's been great to see during just Hispanic Heritage Month, my team came and joined all my events. How can I better help you? They took away a lot of key points that came out of these talks. Like, I didn't realize there was a lack of mentorships for Latino people. I didn't realize you guys struggle with these. How can I help you going forward? And so I think just having that, it's also great for us to grow of like knowing people are recognizing the needs that I meet and knowing that I might be different. And that's okay. I'm embracing my color, my skin. I'm embracing, the extra barriers that I've had to go through. So I think that's great how LinkedIn has been able to also help internally build that community of diverse space for us. Thanks again, Juan, for the question.
Thank you very much.
I do see we have another hand. Mariela, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. If I'm not, please correct me. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for that, Camille. I really enjoyed the presentation. You three ladies are very impressive and amazing. So just wanted to ask you, I have a significant amount of experience, but I'm looking to pivot to tech. How does LinkedIn kind of support someone that's maybe more mid-career, kind of in that sort of more professional stage, and what kind of development opportunities are there so that you can keep learning and keep growing as a professional that's already kind of more experienced than someone who's coming in new from college or something like that?
Gina, I know you made Mar, you want to go ahead and start off with this bat?
Well, yeah, I wanted to take a first step because I actually transitioned. So this happens to be my first job in the private sector at all. And before being here, I had 7 years of experience doing, other things somewhere else. And the transition wasn't easy, but LinkedIn has a lot of tools to do it. So I think I would split that question to 2 parts. The first one is, how to actually make the transition. So first of all, just the fact that you're here and you're trying to connect to others and to understand the tech world is very important, because I think that's one of the biggest things. I don't know, where you're coming from in particular, but this is a very particular world where things function very differently. Many other industries, are more hierarchical. I think something very distinguishing of tech is that decisions are made very horizontally. So, no matter how technical your skills are, you always need to develop soft skills to influence others and convince others about, what you think is best, what direction to take. So it's definitely great that you are like embedding yourself in understanding that culture to make that transition, because it's not only about the skills and passing the interview process, which is in itself like a whole different world, but it's also about like understanding the fit and the culture. The second part of the question, I will understand it as like, once you're here, how will you be set up for success? And I think there are so many different tools. First of all, because at least at LinkedIn, we give opportunities to a lot of people who are making this transition. And, many of us in this chat, in this call are examples of that. And, it's about taking smart risks for the company, which is one of our values. And I think they do take smart risks on us humans, people. And another part has to do with, like, normally when we hire someone, we want to make sure that they are set up for success. So that means making sure that they are connected to the right people, they have the right tools that they need, and they don't have like to pay a tax always from coming from a different place. And just the fact that, like you can be a mid-career might mean that there's like some transition time or space to ramp up, but I'm a testament that you can do that very quickly, and that you can grow if you put the effort and the heart in the job, I think. And I feel like I definitely interrupted you, Camille, so please jump in.
No, I was just going to ask who wanted to answer the question, Gina or Mar. And
Yeah, that was
a great answer. I would just say a quick thing, just don't be afraid to apply. I've seen a lot of statistics that women typically are hesitant to apply to a role because they see basic job descriptions and they see preferred qualifications, and they don't feel like they're a fit, where men are more likely to apply. And what I say, do it. Apply for it. Skills transfer in so many different roles. And that's how I got into the tech world. I came from a background of education and law. I worked with kids, and then I applied for a role as a recruiter, and I just talked about how my skills could transfer into this role, and it broke me into the tech world. So just don't be afraid to send that application in. Gina, is there anything you wanted to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I would just double down what Mara said about the skills. And when we say skills, we're saying build the skills, not go and get a degree, but build the skills. And I think a lot of times there's this idea, I need to go back to school and I think the world's evolving. Why LinkedIn is so invested in the skills-based hiring, that you can build the skills, whether it's through boot camps or coding boot camps, or just doing shorter amounts of education to build the skills. But it's not this long journey of 4-year colleges. I think that I would definitely double down on focusing on the skills that you want to build.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you, ladies.
So I'm going to throw it back to a question that was asked beforehand. I'm going to direct it more to you. You talked to this a little bit earlier, but we would just love to dig in a little bit more about what interests you the most about your data science work at LinkedIn. You talked about how much passion you have from what you're doing. I would just love to dive in a little bit deeper as some people wanted to expand on that answer.
Of course. So I think my favorite part is the problem solving, because, each project is a different problem, and, it takes a lot of thinking and really like understanding what the challenge is about, working with others, collaborating with different teams. So it's a very, like technical, but also social role that I have, at least. And I really love that. And that has to do more like with, when I'm excited about a project, I know it's because it's that kind of project where it's an interesting problem with really cool people. So that was a very short answer, but hopefully it tackles what the question was about.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for answering that. We are almost at time, so I am going to ask one more question where both of you guys can quickly answer. But I would love to know how both of you make your approach of making a mark at a big organization such as LinkedIn. So Gina, I'm gonna throw it to you. Any advice of how you make that big mark? I know
Question.
it's a big question to leave the audience with.
That's a very deep question. How do you make a mark? I think at the end of the day, for me, it's humility. Come with kindness. There's this world can bring a lot of negative. Always be kind. No matter what you're doing, be thankful for the people that brought you along in the journey.
Absolutely. And I would say also, it's more about, for me, it's more about making a mark on the people rather than on the organization itself. And it's about giving back, because the only reason I'm here is because so many people helped me along the way when I needed most. So I want to give that back and help others. And when I notice that, like there's another woman who's being very silent in a room, but they look like you're thinking about something, just encourage them. Or like when there's a speaking opportunity and I know someone is a good candidate, just like be there to support them, be their cheerleader. I think that kind of, small things can play a big role in helping others. And I try to force myself to do that as often as I can.
Camille, what about you before we end?
I had a feeling you guys were going to throw it back to me. I should have prepared. Honestly, I would just say being your authentic self is how I show up at LinkedIn at such a big company. I am proud of who I am. I'm a proud Latina. I am proud to come with my sass. I'm proud to come with my inside voice. Is actually my outside voice. Sorry, y'all that always hear me in meetings, but just being your authentic self is how I've been able to make a mark here at LinkedIn. Well, ladies, that was amazing. Y'all are so inspiring. This was such a great conversation today. So thank you, Mar. Thank you, Gina. We really enjoyed being a part of this opportunity to network and build relationships with the Latinas and tech community. And we love to keep the conversation going, and would love to invite the Latina and tech community to an exciting virtual event. As I mentioned earlier, the Women in Tech event is tomorrow. So please check out the event details in the chat and scan the code on the left-hand side of the screen. And we also want to hear from you and make sure that you claim your swag. If you didn't forget, I did say we are giving away a free 6-month LinkedIn premium subscription. So please complete the survey in the chat, or scan the code on the right-hand side of the screen. That way we can provide you with more value in the future conversations, and we can gift you with that swag. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Please feel free to add us on LinkedIn. I saw a lot of people in the chat posting their LinkedIn profile. Let's connect. Let's continue to have these conversations and uproot one another. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again at our next event. Thank you, everybody.